Hello and welcome back to the Quality Matters Daily Dive, brought to you by Texas Quality Assurance, where quality management gets simplified. I am Kyle Chambers, and today we are talking about management of change. Now, this is one of those topics that can send quality managers and business owners in all sorts of weird, wild directions, because a lot of times what it means is we're doing double documentation, and then there's a whole plethora of ways that this can be broken apart. You'll find the benefit of breaking it apart often comes in your larger organizations, 250, 500 employees or more. For your smaller organizations, it just doesn't make much sense to break this process apart. So, and even the process we're talking about, management of change, where is that in the ISO 9001 standard? Can you quote me the clause for it? Gonna bet you can't, and that's fine because it's more implicitly required. But we're going to dive into it a little bit and take a look. So, but management of change, we've heard this term before, and we might have an MOC, another form we need to use, or we might have an ECN, an engineering change notice, because engineers got to have their own special form. Maybe we just call it an EC, an engineering change. There's a lot of different words around this, and it kind of depends on what we're working on as to why we word it one way versus wording it another. So let's kind of take a look at it here. Let me make sure I've got my screen shared. Might help if I had that selected before I got started here. All right, so let's take a look at the ISO 9001 standard, shall we? Now, again, I use the ISO 9001 standard for these because odds are if it's in 9001, it's in another standard elsewhere. Others might add some more features and requirements to it, but we're getting the basics here. So let's take a look. Context of the organization, who you are, what you do, who you do it for. Maybe not. Leadership, the policy, communication, roles. No, probably not going to be there. Planning, okay, maybe. Address risk and opportunities. You'll find we have something to do with that. The quality objectives, which have a lot to do with the risk and opportunities, but that's a whole other discussion. And planning for changes, but not management of it. Okay, so we got some stuff in 6 we can dig into. 7, we're going to resources. Not really. Competence, training, awareness, communication. Documented information, surprisingly, big source of some of our implicit requirements for management of change. Operations, changes to requirements for products and services, a little bit there. And you're probably getting the hint that there's a little bit of this spread throughout the entirety of the standard. Now, the big one we're not going to touch today because it's its own little can of worms, design and development. Because design and development, folks, is effectively a little miniature management system within the management system. Okay, so just imagine inside, your little hamster wheel, there's another little ball rolling around with a little smaller hamster inside it. We're not going there today. But that is where a lot of the engineering specific changes come from. Again, kind of another thing we'll discuss in detail another day. But as you go through here, we've got really just a lot of places that change could get brought up. And here's the big one. If you're making a change, let me ask yourself honestly, why are you making a change? We've got good reason. If you don't have good reason, then maybe your business isn't going to last too long. But if you're making changes to your business, you've got a reason for it. Well, that reason's you're improving. You found something didn't work well, and so you're making it work better. Corrective action. You've got an idea of how you could prevent a future problem because maybe you see a trend going on, or you see whether a trend within your business, internal issues, trend outside your business, external issues, or perhaps you just had a bright idea and thought, I really think we should do this. This is going to be great for XYZ reasons. Well, we kind of talked about that in our last video. Is that not coming from our improvement clause, nonconformity, and corrective action? Again, I've mentioned before, if they would just leave that nonconformity piece off, we'd all have a much simpler time about it and life would be better. But I'm going to argue, folks, that the entire management of change process for a small, mid-sized business can and ought to be controlled through your corrective action process. Now, again, you might be saying, Kyle, well, these are very complex changes that we have to track. Absolutely. So your corrective action may be the genesis of many things to come. But if you're going to update a procedure, you want to be sure that you have the sign-offs on that. So let's take a look there at what the standard says for document information. Let's go ahead and scroll up there. Again, forgive me as I scroll through all of these. I know how hard it is to watch these on videos sometimes. But when we update our document information, 7.5.2, creating and updating, when creating and updating document information, the organization shall ensure appropriate identification, description, such as the title, author, reference number, format, review and approval for suitability and adequacy. Okay, well, the fact that you had a manager sign off on the document, I guess, kind of meets these requirements, but does it fully meet the requirement? Like, why on earth did we decide we need to change this? Is that management signature really doing everything we need to show letter C, review for approval and adequacy? Maybe if the change was some aesthetics, maybe if it was spelling issues, Lord knows I'm guilty of that. Maybe if it was a rename of a department or something similar, sure, that's fine. Whatever. If I'm the auditor and I see that, I'm just going to move right on by. But if it's a deeper issue, I'm sorry, that manager's signature isn't enough. I need to know why you made the change. And how do you know it was a good change? Well, my friends, that takes us back. Let me pull it up here to our clause 10.2. We keep coming back here. So we need to make certain that we are identifying the issue, what we're doing about it, why we think it's good, and how we know it worked. All right. Now, there's another piece. This is only with known issues. This is with corrective issues. So let me find what I'm looking for here. Now, I am not going to dive off the risk-based thinking diving board today, but I want to show you something that I really wish a lot of y'all would see more often. It'd make everyone's lives a little bit easier. Maybe you have seen it. So if you have, congratulations to you. If you haven't, go read the appendix of the standard. It's there in front of you. So the concept of risk-based thinking has been implicit. I love the way they put this in here because it really wasn't quite so implicit, but they say it's been implicit in previous versions of the standard. So this represents the application of risk-based thinking to planning and implementing quality management system. I agree with that. One of the key purposes of the management system is to act as a preventative tool. Okay, well, yeah, the management system's there for more than putting out fires. It's to ensure they never start in the first place. Consequently, this international standard does not have a separate clause or subclause for preventative actions. Okay, the concept of preventative action is expressed through risk-based thinking and formulating quality management system requirements. Now, I'm not going to dig too much further in here again because I'm not trying to jump off the risk-based diving board today, but I promise you it's coming. So, again, where does that take me? Well, folks, you know the answer. That's going to take me back here to 10.2 for nonconformity and corrective action. So now you might be saying, well, Kyle, what in the world does clause 10 have to do with clause 6 talking about risk? Oh, okay, well, it's straightforward there. We have a risk that merits mitigation. What's the management system tool we use to mitigate risk and to make a change to our management system? Corrective action. Your corrective action tool is incredibly important to your organization. So I argue for small and mid-sized businesses, there is no need for a separate management of change process. Your corrective action is the management of change. The only additions you might make is you might say for the correction of this issue, or for the prevention of a possible issue, or for the improvement of a potential issue. What we're going to do is we're going to create ourselves a little checklist and say, make sure you check all 12 of these documents for conflicts and you update records in all of these 10 to 15 different places. Fantastic. You got a checklist that you attach with your corrective action. That doesn't mean it's a new process. That means you're going more detailed in an existing process. So save yourself some time, Save yourself some effort, save yourself some headache, and get rid of some of this jargon that hangs around our industry. We just need a corrective action. We don't need a management of change. We don't need engineering changes. Perhaps for certain issues or certain codes or so forth, we might need to have the engineering manager sign off on it, but we don't need a separate form and we don't need a separate process. Keep it simple. We use a term, what we call is the minimum viable process. What is the simplest variant of that process that exists so that your business can function effectively? And this is a great example of it. Another reason I argue for not creating additional forms over there is, let's say we have a management of change. What was the genesis of deciding we need that management of change? Who said we need to open an MOC? They said it either because there was a known issue that needed corrected, corrective action. There was a potential issue that needed mitigated based on a risk identification, corrective action, or we're making some big improvement to the business and we want to make certain that improvement takes and is good and is useful, corrective action form again. So hope this is helpful. Hope this clears up a few details for you. The ISO standard does not have an explicit requirement for management of change. It is implicit to manage your changes, and I strongly argue the absolute best tool is your corrective action from clause 10.2 of the management system standard. So with that, you guys have a great day. Hope this helped you out a little bit, and let me know if there are any other topics that you'd like to address, and we'll dive into them.